Hello and welcome to the Chatty Zebra Tudor workbook flip through. I'm going to show you today, this is actually like the revised edition because I fell into a bit of a history rabbit hole this week. I actually discovered about a topic within the Tudors that I'd never heard of before, which is the Black Tudors. And I feel really ashamed and like naive that I'd never come across them before, because actually they was quite a big part of Tudor society. And it's shocking that, like I said, I have loved the Tudors since I was about 10 and I've read so much around them and I'd never come across it before. So I created a new sort of mini unit at the back of this on the Black Tudors. And then while doing that, I sort of reconfigured the whole Tudor workbook. So I think there's 60 extra pages in there now. And if anyone has previously bought it, please just email me and I will send over the new version. Free of charge, of course, because you've already paid for it. So yeah, 60 extra pages and a whole new unit. I'm so excited to show this to you. I love the Tudors. So the majority of our history workbooks also have a geography mini unit that looks at the countries related and the modern version and sort of just compares it and brings a bit of geography in. So this is the modern Wales one because Henry VII was born in Wales. And they have recipes and it's very similar to the Around the World curriculum layout. But it's more comparing as well, comparing the Tudor era with the modern times and just tying in the history with the geography. And then at the end, there's a travel planner. So you're sort of pretending that you're going on holiday there and looking at things that you want to do or where you'd want to go. And it just brings it a bit more to life. So that's the Modern Wales mini unit. And then we have the Tudors workbook. Now I'm so excited to share this with you. Absolutely always loved the Tudors, and when I was redoing it I was like, oh my goodness, I've missed so much out, so much that I love about it, and I just wanted to put it in and include it. Obviously you don't have to print off. I think there's like 153 pages now. You don't have to print them all off. You can pick and choose, like all of our workbooks, you can pick and choose the bits that are relevant to you and your family that you want to learn about more. But I just sort of slipped a little bit more in so that you can learn more of the juicy stuff as well. So starting off, I put a bit more of the background history in. So the Cousins' War, which is also known as the War of the Roses, so leading up to Henry VII, so that you can find out why it was such a big deal when the battle happened, why so many people supported Henry VII, where he came from, how he came to be king or had a right to be king. So it's looking at that. If you're going to watch anything, watch the King in the Car Park documentary. It's free on YouTube and I absolutely love it. As I said in the Shakespeare flip through, it is one of the best documentaries I've ever seen and it's just so exciting. It's so good. So yeah, check that out. It's free on YouTube. So, and I think it was Channel 4 possibly. So looking at the Battle of Bosworth Field and then bringing in Elizabeth of York, she was the daughter of Edward, the York King Edward the Fourth. And so why it was such a big deal when she married Henry Tudor, because in essence, he was the enemy of her father and her uncle and her family. So why it was such a big deal and why she might have agreed to marry him. And then the uniting of the White Roses. And then we have the craft. And Lady Margaret Beaufort. I'm not quite sure how you pronounce that. But she was the mother of Henry VII. And she was like the worst mother-in-law ever. And she was such a formidable character. And she's just such a great person to learn about. She had very strong beliefs and very strong opinions, and she basically created a whole new role for herself within the Tudor court, and actually had a huge impact of Henry VIII himself. And then looking at the plots and pretenders, so the people that claimed, I think it was Prince Edward, who would have been Edward V. I think it is him. that claimed that they were the escaped princes of the Towers and what happened to them. And then we're looking at the Tudor family tree, the children of Henry VII and their marriages and what happened with those marriages. And then Prince Arthur and Catherine of Aragon and how that union and then subsequently his death affected everything in England and completely changed the course of history. Bringing in Henry VIII and looking at his portrait. Looking at his court and his sons and life with Catherine of Aragon before it all went wrong. The battle with King James IV, who was Margaret, his sister's husband. So it's all a bit Games of Thrones-y. Looking at his military ideas, his advisors, his interaction with France and the May Day riots. And then Henry Fitzroy, who was his only claimed illegitimate child. He was rumoured to have lots of other children. Henry Fitzroy is the only claimed one, but he also didn't have a very successful life. And if you look at the historical fiction of Philippa Gregory, she has about the Tudor curse in there, which is a very interesting concept around why the Tudor line was so unsuccessful. They were successful, like Queen Elizabeth had one of the longest reigns, but if you actually look at the Tudor line, it wasn't the most blessed, let's just say. And actually, as a parent, if you're wanting to learn more about the Tudors, I strongly recommend reading the books by Philippa Gregory and Alison Weir. They're absolutely brilliant. They are Tudor historians in their own right, and they bring it to life so much, especially Alison Weir. She has researched so much around the Tudors and is so knowledgeable about the Tudors, and I just absolutely love. I could read anything they wrote. It's brilliant. So yeah, sorry, going back to this, I will waffle a bit because as you can tell, I'm very passionate about the subject. So yeah, so then we bring in Anne Boleyn and looking at how that changed everything, with Henry's divorce and the break from Rome and the beginning of the Church of England and what the fallout of that was, and then the death of Catherine of Aragon. Looking at then at Hampton Court Palace and the birth of Princess Elizabeth, and then Anne Boleyn's fall from grace. They had a very long courtship and a very short marriage. So it's looking at that. And then his hunting accident, that again majorly changed him and his role and his physical condition. Then bringing in Jane Seymour and the birth of Prince Edward, Anne of Cleves the fourth wife, Catherine Howard the fifth wife, and Catherine Parr the sixth wife. And then a debate whether he was a hopeless romantic or heartless tyrant. It'd be interesting to see what the kids' opinions are on that. And then his interests and the Tudor structure, plan a Tudor banquet fit for a king, and the spread of Protestant Reformation, which Henry VIII actually wasn't that big a fan of. As much as he used it for his own gain to get a divorce and try and get an heir, he was actually a private Catholic to the end, I believe. And then looking at his death, bringing in Edward VI. And then looking at Lady Jane Grey, the forgotten Tudor queen. She only ruled for 9 days. She did not want to be queen. She was very much forced into it by her father and his supporters, and she was the one that paid the price for it ultimately. Then looking at Mary I, why she was known as Bloody Mary, plots against her, whether Queen Elizabeth was guilty of plotting, and then her death, and then looking at Elizabeth I. Now, the collage you could do about other Tudors, about Henry VIII as well. There's flexibility with it all. Bringing in William Shakespeare, who first became sort of known about during the Elizabethan era. And he actually performed plays for Queen Elizabeth I. And then looking at the explorers and Drake's journey around the world on his boat, the Golden Hind. Looking at whether he was really a pirate or a privateer. He was celebrated by Queen Elizabeth, not so much by the Spanish. And then her advisors, and Mary, Queen of Scots, her cousin, who did not meet a very nice end. And then the Spanish Armada, and a recipe. Robert Dudley, the one man that she really wanted to marry, but never did because of his wife's death. And you can find out why her dying stopped them from getting married. Rumours about Queen Elizabeth, such as, was she actually a man? There are many, many rumours about Queen Elizabeth, so that's quite an interesting one to look into. While her era is known as the Golden Era, and then the end of the Tudor line, and bringing in James I, who was Mary, Queen of Scots' son. And then the Time Travel Journal, and a book report, film review, and timeline. And then collect your own words and record interesting facts. And then the timeline card. And then we come to the Black Tudor unit. Now, this could be slotted in time order with the other pages. I personally kept it separate, just so that we can focus a little bit more on it and give it the focus that it deserves. There's a few books that I found about it. Like I said, it is very undermentioned and little known. I hadn't even heard about it until this week, and I feel so bad about that. But there is so much in, like, it's so interesting. So you've got Diego the Circumnavigator, who actually journeyed with Sir Francis Drake around the globe. You have Edward Swarth, the Royal Porter. I mean, these were all quite close to the court, and would have met the kings and queens, possibly. You got Sir Francis Drake and his interactions with the slave trade, and with the Chimerians, who were like escaped Spanish slaves in the South Americas, who helped Sir Francis Drake against the Spanish. You've got John Blank, the King's Trumpeter. That's Henry VIII's trumpeter, who was there at the celebration of his son, Henry, Duke of Cornwall. You have Catalina, who was the bedmaker for Catherine of Aragon and knew all her secrets, and was searched upon about whether she was actually did sleep with Prince Arthur or not. The big question that everyone has always debated. And then looking at Catherine of Aragon's parents' rule and interaction with Christopher Columbus, and how that impacted Black Tudors, Black people in Tudor times who then came to England because of this relationships and interactions, and looking at Christopher Columbus. And then there's Jacques Francis, who was a salvage diver on the Mary Rose. He was a free diver, and there's a bit more about the Mary Rose here. And then the seamstress Mary Phyllis is believed to have made costumes for William Shakespeare for his plays. Reasonable Blackman, the silk weaver, who possibly could have made the silk stockings that Queen Elizabeth loved so much. And then Deirdre Jacko, who was a prince after Queen Elizabeth died, but is a very interesting character to learn about. He came over here to learn about how we did things, how we traded, learn the language, and then took it back to his kingdom in Africa to then trade with us. So he's a brilliant character and a very uplifting character to learn about as well. So yeah, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. And I'd love to know what you think about this unit. We're going to start it this week. I'm so excited, I can't wait. Anyway, have a brilliant weekend. Bye.